what was the impetus for the founders agreement? How much does this really detail, and how intricate of a process is that?
So for me, having the founders agreement first was extremely important. The way we framed that is, we've been friends. My co-founder and I we worked together starting back in, I think, 1998. We worked together at a company called Scient. We built some of the world's first e-businesses. We built Realtor.com. We built Hotwire. We built, a bunch that didn't succeed too. We did Pets.com. For anyone old enough, they remember the sock puppet commercials for Pets.com. That one didn't succeed, but we worked together all those years ago. We've been friends ever since. We've raced sailboats together. We've done all kinds of things. We have this group of friends. They're all from the same company, from Scient, from way back in the .com days. And, what we said is, if we do this together, we don't want to ruin poker. We don't want to ruin friendships. That's more priorities, right? We want to make sure that we have all the difficult conversations about the things that can happen in startups before we start the company, before we sign the operating agreement, all this kind of stuff. And these things are to give you a flavor for the kind of conversations that we had. Well, let me back up. Before I go into the details, here's how to think about this. If something bad happens and something undesirable happens with your company, that's the most stressful time in your life, probably. Absolutely. Certainly in your company's life, but in your life, that is not the time you want to be having the most difficult conversations, right? You want to have those conversations before you start it, before you decide to leave your career, before you decide to take the financial hit, all the things that you're doing to make this company happen. You really want to have those conversations first. So these are hard conversations. It's like, what if one of us just says, that's it, I've reached my limit. We haven't generated enough capital investment, enough revenue, enough whatever it is we need to keep going. That one of us runs out of runway to take off the airplane before the other one does. What happens? Like, what happens to our equity? What happens to, what if I go get a job? What if my co-founder goes and gets a job? Can he keep vesting founders' equity, maybe by putting money into the company? What happens if one of us dies? It's like estate planning, right? It's like talking to your parents about putting things in a trust. Like, what happens if I die? I don't want, our spouse to be a business partner that's making decisions in the business, but I want them to be taken care of. I want them to benefit from the growth and the profitability of the business. So, these are the kind of hard conversations you have to go through. And then we had lawyers help us with writing. We wrote a draft. We had lawyers help us write the final version of the founders agreement. We signed it, and then some of those things got incorporated into the operating agreement of the company. For example, having a charitable aspect, we decided right up front. We were really inspired by Salesforce and the way they changed corporate, entirely changed the corporate giving and how it works with their 1-1-1 model. We wanted to do the same. So that was part of what we put in the founders agreement. So it's like, what are the things that are important to us? What happens when bad things happen? What are the values we want to bake into the foundation of the company before we even start it? And how, especially if you're friends, if you're doing it with friends, how do we stay friends, and how do we avoid situations where we're just, we mess up poker? We don't want to do that.
That is great advice. And, that's something, like I said, we haven't covered on the podcast before. So I appreciate you going into detail on that, because first and foremost, preserving friendships. I've seen startups go through where people have parted ways very bitter and angry. And it's a very difficult situation to be dealing with, very stressful as well. And I love the aspect you talked about, that when you're in the heat of it, that is not the time you want to be having these stressful conversations. If you want to recommend somebody to appear on the podcast as a guest, please email us at info@opsqc.com. If you're interested in sponsoring a podcast, please reach out to us at the same email. We'd love to have your support.